Have you ever wondered what goes on behind the table at a dance competition? Exactly what are the judges looking for anyway? This is Making the Impact, a dance competition podcast. Each week we'll cover a different topic related to the world of competitive dance from the perspective of the judges behind the table. Parental pressure can ruin a young person's dance experience, and unfortunately it happens more than you think. On today's episode of Making the Impact, IDA judges and dance educators Kimberly, Soel, and Kevin Grant discuss what happens when a dance parent wants it more than the dancer.
Hey Dance World, welcome to this week's episode of Making the Impact. I'm your host, Courtney Ortiz, and I'm here with my co-host, Lesley Mealor.
Courtney, it is officially our birth month. It is my birthday this weekend. It is your birthday soon, so happy early birthday.
Happy early birthday to us. Yay, February babies.
Yay. Yeah, hopefully we can have some nice celebrations and it won't be snowing or icing or doing something very February.
Oh, I'm sure it'll be absolutely freezing here in New York City on our birthdays. I already know. And I wanted to do something exciting for my birthday this year because I'm turning 35.
Yes.
But, you know, I don't think anything exciting is going to happen, unfortunately, because it is happening right smack dab in the middle of my insane February, which is filled with nothing but convention weekend after convention weekend.
Well, and it just, the holidays, and then it's the new year, and then all of a sudden it's competition season, and our birthdays just come up really quickly. So I am going to be home in Georgia celebrating my dad's 70th birthday, my 39th birthday, and my brother-in-law's 38th birthday. So, yeah, we've got a lot of February birthdays in my family. So, yeah, but I'm excited for today's episode. Speaking of parents, so we've got a little bit of a parent-specific episode for y'all today.
We do. So to all the dance parents out there, we know you listen. You are one of our primary listeners on Making the Impact. We love you. Shout out to you all. But this one is an episode all about you. So get ready, get mentally prepared for that. Maybe you'll hear some things that you agree with. Maybe you hear some things that you don't really love, but we're going there in this one. And we have some great guests who are joining us. But before we jump into this episode, let's hear from our sponsors. Under the co-artistic direction of Francisco Gella and Usha Marie Zorzano, Zeitgeist Dance Theater is a summer season professional dance company based in Santa Fe, New Mexico. From the German word Zeit meaning time and Geist meaning spirit, known as the spirit of the times, Zeitgeist Dance Theater reflects the now, the essence, and spirit of the age in which we presently live. Zeitgeist Dance Theater discusses topics that are difficult, as if topics are not discussed, change will not come. A core company value is understanding what is going on in the daily atmosphere and having a response for the future. The company also offers a trainee experience, providing emerging professional artists from ages 17 to 24 with a taste of professional company life. The company's trainees are selected annually through an audition process to participate in a 3-week integrated company experience during the summer, culminating in a performance at the New Century Dance Project Festival. Applications for the trainee experience are due by February 19th, 2024. Learn more about Zeitgeist Dance Theater and their trainee experience by visiting their website at zeitgeistdancetheater.org.
Do you ever wish your socks could give you a foot massage while you dance? With Apollo Shocks, consider it done. Snag a pair of their dance compression socks now and use our exclusive podcast promo code IMPACT10 in all caps in the promo box at checkout for 10% off. Your feet will feel like they're on cloud 9. Oh, and P.S. They have a satisfaction guarantee with free returns and exchanges. So you have nothing to lose, but everything to gain. Visit apolloperformance.com to order yours now. That's APOLLA performance.com.
All right, Dance World, we are jumping into this week's episode, and it's a hot one, not gonna lie. It's for all the parents out there. Maybe you should be giving a listen right now. Listen hard, because we're gonna be diving deep into some sensitive topics that you might not love, but you gotta hear it, y'all. You have to hear it. It is an important one. We all have dance parents that are taking the dancers to the studios. And there's a lot of dancers who love to dance, but there's might be some parents who love this dance world more than the dancer might be. Their heart might not be in it, but the parent's heart is in it. Or maybe the parent is living through their child and because they didn't have the chance to have dance in their life when they were young, or whatever the case may be. We're going to cover all of these topics and chat with 2 IDA judges and special guests who are joining us on this chat. The The first guest I'm excited to welcome back to our podcast is an IDA judge who has been on our roster for many, many years. She is a former studio owner and an active teacher in the New England area. And you may remember her all the way back from season 2, episode 31, making the most out of your classes in studio and online. Because if you remember back then, it was the pandemic. So we were doing a lot of online dancing back then. I'm excited to welcome Kimberly Soel to the podcast. Welcome, Kimberly.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're so welcome. And it's actually really interesting. I listened to that episode. I decided to randomly just pick an episode and listen to like a few months ago. And I picked that one. And
That's smart.
I kind of just wanted to like hear what we sounded like in season 2, which we've come a long way. But I wanted to hear like what we talked about in that chat, because I think it's important. Like the things we covered in that episode were really important, even just about like etiquette in the classroom, which I think we need to do another one. But then the whole like online side of it, I was like, what did we talk about? I have to know. So, and it's still relevant because people are still taking class online.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah. So happy to have you back on the pod, Kim.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
All right. Well, if you wouldn't mind, since it's been a minute, could you tell the world a little bit more about you, where you're based, where you grew up, what your dance training was like, and what you're working on?
Absolutely. So I am based in New England. This is actually my 20th year teaching.
Nice.
Oh my goodness. For 10 of those years, I actually owned a studio in Massachusetts. I sold that studio in 2019, which turned out to be for the best. I was pregnant with my first and needed to commit to that. Now I have 2 amazing little boys, ages 4 and 2, so they keep me on my toes. And I teach at an incredible studio in Massachusetts, as well as work with a local theater, choreographing a lot of their productions and appearing in a lot of their productions. And then I also work with a couple of private schools, choreographing their musicals.
Love it. You are busy.
Yeah, a little.
And then judging all season long as well.
Exactly. Yes. Yay, judging season.
It
is here. I love it. Well, I'm excited to hear your perspective on this because, as you said, as a former studio owner, I'm sure that you've dealt with this situation many times throughout your time as a studio owner and possibly currently as an active teacher. So,
yes.
Yes. All right. Well, can't wait to chat with you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
All right. And our next special guest is an IDA judge, and he is brand new on our roster as of this season. We're so excited to have him. And he's also the owner of the Grant Training Program, which he's about to tell you all about. I'm excited to welcome Kevin Grant to our podcast. Welcome, Kevin.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. Hi, everyone.
Yes. I'm so happy that you are here with us today. And I'm so excited that you're on the IDA roster this season.
Me too.
Yay. Awesome. Well, Kevin, could you tell us a little bit more about you, where you grew up, where you're based, what you're working on now, any professional credits, and a little bit more about the Grant Training Program?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. So I'm from Fort Wayne, Indiana. I grew up here and I went to a magnet arts school. So they introduced the arts to you very early, starting in kindergarten. So through that, I decided that I really enjoyed ballet. So I enrolled through school at first, and then I danced at Fort Wayne Ballet, which is now a professional company and school here in town. At the time, it was just a school. Through that, I went through various summer intensives, and then I went to Butler University here in Indiana for a year. I came back and decided that I wanted to just start trying to decide what I wanted to do. I wasn't quite sure yet. So there was this local school here that I was like their male dancer and did their male dancer parts. And through that, I started teaching. And I realized that I just really had a passion for it. And then I danced semi-professionally. I did a tour in Malaysia and Australia, New Zealand. But my passion always really lied with students. So then I ended up teaching for that school for 10 years, became the assistant director. Through that, we had kids that got accepted to all the major programs, SAB, PNB, a student dance for New York City Ballet, Ballet Austin, all different types of companies. And then I just decided that I wanted to do something different. So I decided to start teaching for competitive studios. So I started teaching for a studio called Tiffany and Company Studio of Dance, which I still teach for. I'm the ballet director. And it just opened my eyes. I started going to conventions. My very first convention was actually Monsters of Hip Hop. And it just,
Oh, wow.
yeah,
My favorite.
it was crazy. And I loved it. I loved the energy. And I just realized that these kids wanted to have good ballet training, but they just didn't have access to it because a lot of the ballet schools were saying it's either us or them, and so they didn't
Right.
really want to work with them. And so I realized, like, hey, there's a place for that. So it's kind of a niche market. And so I created my program. And so all of my students dance at all other studios. So they go to various studios, but they come to me for their ballet training because it's just a training based program and not a performance based program. So they're just literally coming here to get really good training, but I'm not requiring them to do a nutcracker or summer intensive or anything. I'm just simply making them better for what they want to do. And so in that way, I don't feel any ownership over the students or over their training. And then the studio owners feel really comfortable because they know I'm not trying to take their students. And I go to all of the, studios recitals, and I go to all the conventions and competitions that I can go to because I sort of feel like I'm just an ambassador for the art and I don't have any ownership over anybody else. So through that, I like to guest teach and I judge and everything. So yeah, I'm in my 5th year of having my program and so far so good.
Wow.
That is so smart.
Really love that. Like you said, that's so refreshing because nobody feels like you're poaching anyone.
Right.
You're just trying to help where some of the other studios may not have the time, the resources, the et cetera, like you do. So how nice is that? That's amazing.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah. I'm really inspired by that. That is so smart and so fantastic. I wish that more studios would be on board with these types of opportunities. And if that does exist in your area, like take advantage of it, studios, because we always talk about how we need more ballet all the time. Ballet, technique. And you're doing some at the studios, but there's only so much time, even in the studio schedule. So maybe there's dancers that want more, but the studio can't provide it, or they're like taking dancing down and not at their level, or whatever the reason is. So I think that's so smart of what you created. So congrats on that.
Thank you very much.
All right, y'all, let's jump into this very hot topic.
Whew, yes, I was saying before we started that, this is people want to tiptoe around this because it's not a comfortable thing to talk about. It's a very vulnerable conversation, when you're talking about a parent that might be pushing their dancer farther than they want to go themselves. But like I said, and I was very pleased with myself about this, we're going to just bust through this topic like the Kool-Aid man through a wall because we have to talk about it. I think people need to hear some of the thoughts that we all have, especially from our 2 studio owner perspectives, program, director perspective and former studio owner, because, y'all are the ones that have really dealt firsthand with parents and placement and conversations about things. So I guess, have you either of you experienced this before in your years teaching and directing and owning things?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm experiencing it right now, actually. I think I offer privates, a lot of privates every week. And I think sometimes parents think quantity equals quality. And I have to explain to them often that, I'm only going to give your child 1 private a week. And I really would like to see more progress in their group classes. Because if they can only work one-on-one, how are they going to really prepare themselves to work in the greater dance world, no matter what genre you're doing? And I think sometimes they think because they have the resources to pay for it. And so they're just throw. And I'm like, we're not really doing anything of substance in these privates because they're not able to retain because they're not passionate about it, But I think sometimes parents aren't ready to receive that. And that's, like where it gets tricky sometimes. It's not like I want to push you out of the door, but at the same time, I'm also trying to say like, hey, like maybe we need to rethink this whole 20 privates a week thing.
Oh, that exists. People do that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's some people, I think there's some people that use private lessons as a method of training. So that way they don't have to be attached to a studio, so like when you see like an independent student, lots of times they literally only train privately and they're not attached to a studio. And it's really prevalent in the ballet world, especially, but it's definitely I've found it more and more common in the convention and competition world as well.
Oh my gosh. I literally had no idea. I had no idea that someone's taking 20 privates a week. Like that is out of control. We also did a private lessons episode. And I think it's really smart that you brought that up right away because I do feel like that is when the parent, because it's that extra supplemental training that isn't required. The privates probably aren't required. It's probably you can afford to offer this to your child,
Right.
so you are. And maybe your child doesn't want to be in privates 20 times a week. Like, that's crazy to me. Anything to
Absolutely.
add, Kimberly?
Yeah, I absolutely have encountered this many, many, many times. Thankfully, the studio I'm at right now, we don't really have this issue for the most part. But when I ran my studio, I did have a lot of parents who wanted it desperately, and the student didn't necessarily match that passion. And it definitely became an issue in the long run.
Do you think in those instances that you can remember, was like, what's the root of it? Is it because the parent didn't have the opportunity? Is it because they want to see their child succeed at something and this is what they've picked? Like, where does it come from, do you think?
I think it's kind of a case by case basis. For some of the parents, it's because they never had that in their childhood and they really wanted to have that opportunity. For others, when I was running my studio, Dance Moms was like a big deal.
Yeah.
So we were apparently trying to match that like dance mom energy,
Oh gosh.
which
Oh God.
Yikes.
wasn't my favorite thing in the entire world.
Nope.
Yeah, so I think it's definitely a case by case basis for every parent.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't you think the dance moms would like watch that show and be like, I don't want to be like that? And it's not supposed to be inspiration for them to act like the
Right?
crazy dance moms on the television show. It should be an eye-opening, rude awakening, like, oh gosh, is this really how dance parents act? I am never gonna act like that. But I'm not sure if it really fixed the problem.
No, sadly, I don't think it did.
I think Dance Moms didn't fix a lot of things.
Yeah.
It contributed to a lot of problems.
That's true. I don't know. If it was me, if I was a dance
one
mom,
shoe.
oh God.
Oh, yes.
Oh God.
Oh,
So
my
many
goodness.
things. Yeah. Yeah, that is a big question, Lesley, as far as like why does this happen and where does it come from? And kind of like what you were saying, and I really think it does come back to the opportunity. Maybe the parent didn't have that when they were young. Maybe they danced, but maybe they weren't good. And maybe they
Sure.
see potential in their kid and see that their kid is good and they could do this and they want to push them because that's what their dream was when they were young. Or maybe their parents didn't have the funds to be able to invest into the proper training or the quality training or the accessibility of it at the time. Like, kind of living that dream out through their kid is what comes to mind for me when I see. I mean, I'm even going to go. I'm not in a studio regularly, so I don't feel like I see this. But let's be real. We can kind of tell, even when I'm at dance conventions, I can kind of tell the parents that are sitting around the perimeter of the room and who's really invested in it and who's just kind of like enjoying the time and letting their kid do their thing. But like, there are so many times where I see like little tiny baby 7-year-olds come out on stage in the most blinged out costume I've ever seen in my life. That costume probably cost like $800 at least minimum. Kid is not excited to be on stage
No.
at all.
Not
Like,
stoked.
could not care less about being on stage. And it's just, you can read it, you can feel it in their
Yeah.
body language. You can tell that like they're uncomfortable, they're not excited, they're not prepared, they're not ready to do this. And to me, when I see that, and it's primarily like the blinged out costume, it feels forced and pressured because we could have put any costume on there. We could have just let them go and do some whatever on stage, just spin around and have a good time with a smile on their face. But everything feels really forced at that point. And it makes me sad for the dancer because I'm like, I think that they would rather just be hanging out with their friends in the dressing room and watching TV right now. But instead, we put them in this costume and shoved them up on stage. And I'm just kind of like, why? You know, I think like the parents have to kind of read that a little bit. And even the studios, like, obviously the studios are probably like, well, you know, mom wanted the kid to have the solo, so I guess we'll give her the solo. But I don't even think the kid wants to do the solo. I mean, there has to be some, I don't know. Have you ever dealt with that, Kimberly? Because like, I feel like if I was a studio owner, I would be like, I want, like, that's great. Your kid wants a solo, but number one, they're not ready. They don't focus in class. Like, whatever the reasoning is, it shouldn't just be like everyone gets one. I don't know. That's just my perspective.
Correct. Yes. So when I ran my studio, solos were earned. It wasn't just something you could pay for.
Mm.
And I've kind of made it a point now that I don't own my studio to work for studios who have that same mindset, because that whole like pay to play situation creates a lot of problems. And it does create those children who are being forced up on stage in these crazy outfits. And they're really not, it looks traumatic to me, to be honest. As a judge, my heart breaks. And as a mom, my heart breaks even more because, yes, as a parent, I want to give my child every opportunity I possibly can. But I also want to make sure that my child is healthy and happy and comfortable in their own skin and, prepared. And it's just.
Well, and you said something that I think is important to point out. You want to give your child every opportunity that you can. But I think the caveat to that is that they also want.
Yes, absolutely.
Like here, horseback riding, ice skating, jujitsu, whatever. Like, I don't want all those things, Mom. I want this thing. And so I think that's like for parents to understand, like, yeah, even though you can, you don't have to, you shouldn't, find the thing they really love. And if that's not dance, give it a year or two. And if it's really not that, then move on.
Right.
I'm curious to know from Kevin, since you're not in your program, it's not necessarily a competitive environment, a performance-based environment. But what does that energy, that like pressury dance mom energy, do to the environment in the studio? Because we can already sort of tell what happens in a competitive environment. You get even more of that sort of pressure amongst the kids. But do you feel that way in the studio and your training program?
I don't necessarily feel that because I try to combat that in the studio. I think a big thing about my program is that I always say, like, all of these kids that normally wouldn't have spoken to each other have now become best friends. And that's what's really important to me because I'm building those relationships now. So I see studio owners talk to other studio owners. I see those parents talk to other parents because I don't tolerate that with my own program. And so I kind of feel like it starts at the head. So if they know that that's not who I am at my core, and that's not how I'm going to have my program, and that's not the type of students that I want, then, then it just doesn't even infiltrate my atmosphere. You know what I mean? Because I've had to, since I'm the only teacher, my program is so small. So I've had students that I have said no to because of their parents, because I know that will create a toxic environment in the studio. And that's not what I want, because I want all of those kids to support each other. I want them to all be clapping for each other. I want them to all be happy for each other. So, as far as for me and my program, I just don't tolerate it at all. So it doesn't even exist.
Hey dancers, if you're looking for that extra edge, let me introduce you to Apollo Shocks. They've got scientific proof to back up their cushioning capabilities, helping you feel more secure and comfortable with every step or leap. And you know me, I wouldn't recommend anything I haven't tried myself. I wear my Apollo Shocks all the time, especially when teaching and dancing at convention. They offer such great arch support and compression for quick post-class recovery, and I highly recommend all dancers having a pair in their dance bag. Use the code IMPACT10 in all caps in the promo box at checkout for 10% off your order of your new pair of Apollo Shock compression dance socks. Plus, they offer free returns and exchanges. Learn more and view all of their sock variations now at apolloperformance.com. That's APOLLA performance.com. And now let's get back to the episode.
I'm so curious, like what does that actually look like? Like when you've had to say no to somebody who wants to be training with you and you just get a vibe or you get the feeling or whatever, like how do you have that conversation?
About this mom from someone through the grapevine?
I mean, I'm just very professional and I just say, at this time, I don't think my program is a great fit. I would recommend this program, and that program. Please let me know if I can be of service. Best, Kevin Grant.
Perfect.
Best. Because I think sometimes the more you explain yourself, the more then you have to explain yourself again, So if I just kind of like, this is the answer to your question and, and move it on, but not in a rude way or a demeaning way. And still, when I see those parents or those students, I'm still very happy and, clap for them and talk to them and stuff. It just is, I think they get the point,
That's a part of doing business, I think. And it's a tough thing when we are business owners and we choose who we want to do business with and who we don't want to do business with. And that's okay. We are allowed to say no. We are allowed to turn down customers because it needs to fit into what our expectations are to run our business successfully. And I think I'm sure all of us have gone through that exact thing. I mean, I have many, many times with, and I'm going to be transparent, with different competition companies that I want to bring on with IDA. If we don't align in what our expectations are out of this service, out of this agreement, it's not going to go well. And it's not even worth the business. It's not worth my time, energy, frustration to put time into that if it's just going to be more work than it's worth. And creating those safe studio environments are so crucial to the success of your dancers. So for you to be able to be strong enough, because I'm sure there are a lot of studio owners out there who are like, man, I wish I could do that. I wish I could, say no or put my foot down or let go of this parent who's toxic in the environment. Like, I'm sure that exists everywhere. But I do think that those type of things need to be squashed immediately. And it's not good for the rest of your clients as well.
100%.
Yeah. So what about the dancers themselves? So we've talked a little bit about, what we see and what we feel and the vibe we get from the parents. But what do you see from those dancers? Is there like just within the classroom setting, is there a lack of motivation from these particular dancers? Do you feel like they can't take corrections or don't apply the corrections if they're given to them? Or are they hyper focused and so on their game? And is that because they want to get better, or is that because of the pressure of their parent and wanting to please their parent? I mean, there's so many ways, and I'm sure you can't get into the mind of your student right now, but I'm sure you've kind of seen that energy from certain students who have particular parents who are like this. So anything come to mind?
Honestly, I see the kids who have the overbearing parents are usually highly anxious. Like, they're trying to please everybody. And I feel like they're going to have many, many years of therapy ahead of them to learn the coping mechanisms that just didn't happen when they were a kid because they were forced into all of this. And it breaks my heart because it's not necessary.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I think for the kids, I see lots of times those particular ones are focused about the wrong things. Like, they're the ones that are constantly looking to see if I'm looking at them in the room. They're the ones that are like, never really know the combination because they're always watching someone else, or they're looking out of the window, and
well, they'd rather be somewhere else.
Well,
they'd
yeah,
rather
exactly.
be out there.
Exactly.
And I try to explain that, sometimes, but it's hard because, again, it goes back to like, if the parent is ready to receive what it is that I'm saying, because I'm not going to be blunt, so I'm trying to be sensitive to their feelings and to the kid and stuff. But sometimes it just is like, man, this parent just really isn't hearing me, because again, I also don't want to, especially if I'm working for another studio or something, I'm not, I want them to retain the student and retain the customer and stuff. But you do see that sometimes where it's like, the parent will say, how is, Susie doing? And I say, oh, I would just like for her to be a little bit more focused, and then she asked me again in a couple of weeks and it's still the same answer. And I'm thinking to myself, well, like, it's, when I say that, you don't even ask me to explain it any further, because I'd be happy to. Like, what I mean by that is actually, like, have you tried something else, because this has been her third year and this has been the 10th time that you've asked me this and I've had the same answer. So maybe, we should rethink this.
Well, then you wonder, like, okay, so your answer was, I would like to see her be more focused. Well, then what does the parent turn around and go do with the kid? Like, is the mom saying, you need to be more focused? But I wonder, the question doesn't seem to be from parent to child is, are you having fun? Do you still like doing this? Because if you don't like doing this, we don't have to do this anymore. But like, that doesn't seem to be the conversation because she keeps coming back and getting the same feedback from you, right?
Right, absolutely. Yeah. Well, because I think at that point, then it's more about the parent, because they are waiting for me to tell her that Susie is doing a good job so she can tell her friend that my Susie is doing a great job in dance, because the pressure of social media now, even with the parents, like they want everyone else to know that their kid is successful because they're an extension of themselves. So it doesn't matter if it's a class or if it's a convention, they need to have something from that to validate that. So I think, lots of times they're not even necessarily really concerned if Susie is doing well. they're concerned if I'm going to tell them that she's doing well
Right.
so they can have bragging rights about it.
Well, and we just talked about this in our awards ceremony chat. Like Susie got first place. Well, that sounds great to somebody who doesn't understand that there's 25 first places. But like you said, the power of social media and the comparison game, even among parents, I think so much more now maybe than even when we were growing up, is just insane, because you want to post your kid with the first place. You want to post your kid got a solo. Like, my kid's special, therefore I'm special. I created that, therefore I am special too. Like, and I don't have kids, but one can only imagine that that's something that goes through somebody's head.
Right, because there's the extra pressure of every kid needs to, like, if you are a competitive, successful dancer, you're supposed to have an Instagram attached to that to show off your accolades and show off your awards and show off the training that you're doing and all of the things. So it's like parents feel obligated to, like, essentially, like, become marketing experts and branding their kids on social media at such a young age. And if they don't have anything to talk about on that page, then they're going to feel like they aren't succeeding. And it is an extra layer of crazy pressure. I mean, that's so interesting that we're talking about it from the parent side, because I didn't even think about that. I always just think about social media and the actual dancer themselves, the actual kid who is seeing the societal pressure of what is success through the lens of social media. And now it's the parent is also seeing that. So it's like two people for one. For me, I've only known social media as an adult. Like, that wasn't really, like, if you remember MySpace, that came out like, when I was in high school. So like, I was almost an adult and I got a little taste of that as in the teenage years. But like, the real deal of what we know as Instagram and TikTok and everything didn't really come within, since the past 10 years. So like, I can't imagine what that's like growing up with it as a young child, but then also having mom lingering over saying, make sure you get this action shot and post this. And oh, we got to make sure we get a photo with your scholarship this weekend from convention to post it. It's like, oh my gosh, can't we just like let the kids just train and have fun and love dance and not feel like it always has to be broadcasted 24/7?
100%.
It's stressful.
Yeah.
There's a little meme that goes around graduation time every year. It's usually on Facebook because it's text based, but it says something about, like, make sure you congratulate the kid who doesn't have the banners and the ribbons and the scholarships and they graduated from high school. That is something. You don't have, like, all these other things are awesome too, but that kid did something as well. And I think that needs to translate into dance too, almost even more, because it is extracurricular. And if you're able to pay for that extra thing, that in itself is an achievement and something special and exciting. So why does it have to be the next step of, oh, we have to get a scholarship, we have to, have a solo, all this stuff? Like, isn't it enough? Can't it be enough that Sally just takes dance and she loves it? That should just be enough.
And I want to speak on like the teacher's end of this discussion for a split second, because I do think it's really important what you just said, Lesley, that they love it, that they love it. It has to be something that they love. Let's be real. And we're a competitive dance podcast, so we're kind of talking about that. But competitive dance is not a cheap hobby. They need to like to do this. They should be excited to go to the studio. Of course, sometimes it feels repetitive. Of course, there's going to be days that you're like, I don't want to go to the studio today. I don't want to train today. Can't I just stay home? Yes, we all feel that. We feel, as adults, we feel that with work. Like, it's a normal feeling to feel that. But you should be excited when it's competition weekend. You should be excited to have that final dress rehearsal and put your costume up for the first time. You should be excited to get together with your friends and learn a group routine at choreography camp. Like, if there is not excitement and it's just like grudge and I don't want to do this, and mom, why are you making me go? And if you're getting that type of pushback from your kid, I don't know if it's the right fit for them. They shouldn't be pressured just because you as a parent have invested however much money you chose to invest in this. Doesn't mean that they need to continue to do this. And that's the other part of it that I think is really tough, is the money aspect, because it isn't cheap. And I can only imagine as a parent, like, oh, all of a sudden now my kid wants to stop when I've already put probably $20,000, $30,000 into their training and competition fees. That's got to be a hard pill to swallow on the parent's end. And we say all the time, it's okay if dancers don't want to go on to pursue professional careers. But if a dancer quits before they've graduated, then it's an issue. Like, it's just confused. It's just interesting to me where we choose to put the money in something like that might just be a hobby, but it needs to be a hobby they love to do. And on the teacher's end, it is so extremely hard. I'm letting you know, we are all talented teachers here on this podcast. It is the hardest job in the world to motivate a dancer who doesn't want to be in that room. It is like pulling teeth. It is so hard. I cannot describe it. Like, even I'm sure teachers at school deal with that because everyone learns differently and a lot of kids don't want to be there and they have to be there. Like, I get it. And our job is to educate them and inspire them and teach them. But there's only so much that you can do when that kid is just wants nothing to do with it in the room. But the mom is like, oh, they look so great. They're doing so well. Yet it's, and it's like, no, they're not. They're not focused. They don't want to be here. I have to correct them 24/7. They're disrupting class. It is a hard thing for teachers to handle.
For sure. But I think, it goes back because I just went to the first convention of the season. And I think sometimes it's because those moms like the socialization of it all. They like being with their friends. They like putting their kids in their Lululemon with their Stanley cups. They like sitting with their designer purses and being like, which hotel are we going to next weekend? When are we going out for drinks? And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that, but sometimes I think, like, wouldn't it be better for you guys just to get together in your own hometown and like have fun and have a girls' night at your house versus like dragging your kids to be up every morning at 5 a.m. and you're arguing with them to get their hair ready and picking out outfits and doing all this if they don't want to be there, And I'll look at a convention room and sometimes it'll be like, 50% of those kids, you can tell that they're just like their mom made them come because they have to come. And they're just the ones that standing in the back and they're like, oh, my group got called again to go out to the center. Right. And it just is so sad because, their parents spent $500 for them to go there that weekend. And they're like just chilling in the back with the ponytail, and it's sad.
Doing really cartwheels.
And, yeah. And I always say the one thing I can't teach a kid is energy. So if like they don't have any energy because they don't want to be there, I don't know what you want me to do.
Right. That's internal. You can't motivate that into somebody who just doesn't have it. It doesn't work that way.
Right.
Yeah.
Part of me understands where those moms are coming from because being a mother can be extremely isolating and you crave those adult interactions, but there's healthier ways of finding that adult interaction, like join a play group or something, but you don't need your social interaction does not need to be directly connected to what your child is doing all the time.
Right. Yeah. And even if that's the easiest thing to do, like, again, if it's not dance, it might be something else. Go find the soccer moms, go find the book club moms. I don't know. There's so many activities out there. There's a mom there. She's probably cool. You could go hang out with her and get your glass of wine while, after the soccer game or whatever. And that's just kind of what I wonder too, like you said, Kevin, at the conventions, like, and I do love to see a like dance mom group who are like great friends and people who, have been friends for life because their kids have been friends for life. But those groups make it to high school graduation because all those kids really want to be there. And, I wonder, Kevin, how old is your youngest like private student at your school?
I would say 8 years old is the youngest I'll do a private with. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'm just wondering, how often do you see this dance mom energy, kid doesn't want to be there, in the later years of dance? Because I'm hoping that maybe by 10, 11, we've all figured out, hey, Sally doesn't love this. Maybe I'm going to check myself as the mom and say, you know what? If you want to stop, let's stop. Let's find something else. But like, I'm sure those poor kids pitter into high school and are still being pushed to do this. Like, do you happen to see that with any of your older kids, or by the time they get to you, do you think that's gone away, or they filter themselves out?
I always say 13 is the telling age because that's when they start to, things change internally, physically. And then that's sometimes when I can tell, that there's been a shift because they're interested in other things and activities. And then that's normally when I try to have a conversation with parents, if it's appropriate, to just be like, is this really what we want to still be doing? Is this the track that you still want them to be on? Especially if because all of my students are also going to another studio. So this is on top of that. So it's an increased cost. So, I like to be very upfront with them of like, if they just want to take like one rec jazz class at their studio and not have to be dancing 6 days a week. Like maybe we need to have that conversation, and normally I would say that it happens about at age 13. And then it'll be like that whole year they kind of figured it out. And then the next year they're either back to being super committed or they've just decided that that's not what they want to do anymore. So normally for me, it's about 13.
Yeah.
I mean, I've experienced it at all ages, to be honest. And some of the worst cases were students that were 15, 16, 17, 18. Yeah. And
that is just heartbreaking. And, I don't know what I worry for the 18-year-old who doesn't actually know what she wants to do or loves to do because she's never been given the opportunity.
Right.
And I think a lot of times too, once you get to that age, if you've gotten to that point in your life and you've been forced to do something that you don't love, you're probably also not very good at it. I don't often see, if you've gotten to 18, most of the time you love this and you're probably good at it because you've done it for so long. But like I think you said, there's these like moments where sometimes you're at competition and you're like, okay, how did we get here? Because you're 18, you're not as technically advanced as I would expect, and you don't look very happy. Like that is where you can almost pinpoint, okay, somebody made you do this, your mom made you do this. And I don't know, it does break my heart because you have such a hard time as a young adult anyway, even if you do already know what you want to do and love and got to do it with no outside pressure.
Yeah.
Like it's still really hard to be 18, 19. Like, but then you have that scenario where, you just have never been able to do what you really want to do and you don't even know what that is. That sucks.
Yeah, that's a tough feeling to feel because I feel like looking back on my life growing up, I always loved dance. It's crazy for me to even watch some of these old videos of like these home videos my mom randomly sends me of me just like dancing in my living room. Like I've always been dancing. It was like apparent that this is what I'm supposed to do. I loved doing it. When I was not at the studio, I was dancing.
Just like, axles across your room. Just multiple axles at 10 years old.
Yes. Like, and I see that and like, I don't remember that, but like, I see that and I'm like, wow, maybe this really was my calling. That's why we put our kids in dance, not because you think they should be a dancer, because they were maybe bouncing around in the living room and they were 2 years old and they got rhythm or whatever the reason may be. Like, that's why we put our kids in dance. So if they love it, it's very noticeable for us. Even like you said, Lesley, as a senior level dancer, it shouldn't feel fake and forced at that point. It should be coming from somewhere deeper. You have lived some life experiences. You maybe have gotten your heart broken by then. We can dig deep and find those emotions at 17, 18 in the senior division and perform with real emotions. And we can tell if it's like slapped on, pressured, fake acting performance, or this is real. I believe you. I can tell you love this. Wow. And that's the dancer that's going to probably get first overall over the other dancer that's over rehearsed and has a generic smile on their face. Like you said, you kind of have to love it by that point. If you're not loving it by 17, 18, what are we doing? Wasting money, wasting time. You could have been learning a new skill. You could have been finding something else that you really excited about. And I think that when those dancers get pressured to dance for that long, it makes them fall out of love of dance.
Yes,
maybe
absolutely.
They did have that passion when they were younger. And then maybe there was that shift. Maybe the mom or dad didn't get the hint and wouldn't lay off on how intense they were behind the scenes or, at home when it comes to their expectation of this dancer. Well, you have to make sure you're doing this. Why aren't you doing that? Have you thought about this? Well, you have to make sure you're in training every single day. Like that pressure, I can only imagine a dancer is probably like, gosh, I really hate this. Is this what I'm signing up for? Is this what you really, should I actually make a career out of this? I don't want to do this. Like that's absolutely what's going on in a teenager's head. Because like you said, Kevin, 13 is that year where they're kind of about to go into high school and they're figuring themselves out and what they like. And then parent is just like on them about dance 24/7. It's got to be a lot to take in as a kid.
Absolutely. And then, I mean, you add that like on top of college and their homework and stuff, especially like junior year where it gets really hard and they're already, their parents are saying, you got to do this and you got to do that. what school are you applying to? And then if you're adding that on top of an activity that you're doing daily that you don't really enjoy, I that's the perfect, recipe for an unhappy teenager right there, And I always say too, that those people are going to be the people that come to watch shows later on that are going to keep dance in the forefront.
Exactly.
And so we need to make sure that also too that their mental health is happy for dance, because when they have children, we want them to put them in dance class, right? We want them to go to the dance movies and to go see Taylor Swift and Beyonce and the ballet and stuff. But if they have a bad connection with dance, because whether it's the teacher, the studio, or the parent pressuring them, later on in life, they're going to have trauma associated with that. And then where are we going to be, as far as dance educators?
Zeitgeist Dance Theater, co-directed by Francisco Gella and Usha Marie Zorzano, is a professional dance company located in Santa Fe, New Mexico. In addition to its professional company, Zeitgeist Dance Theater offers a training experience for emerging artists ages 17 to 24. This immersive program provides a glimpse into professional company life, including both training and performance opportunities that play a significant role in preparing trainees for a future professional performance career. The trainee schedule runs parallel to that of a professional company dancer and their apprentices, rounding out the week experience in a performance at the New Century Dance Project Festival. To apply for the trainee experience, aspiring dancers must audition and submit their application by February 19th, 2024. For additional information about Zeitgeist Dance Theater and its trainee experience, visit their website at zeitgeistdancetheater.org.
That's such a good point.
That's true.
And I also think too that I feel like there's also a stigma of dancers, and maybe this happens with athletes too, I don't really know, but quitting something feels like it has a stigma. It feels like a negative thing. Oh, I danced for 10 years, but I quit.
Yeah.
That doesn't, there's a stigma. It's like, oh, you couldn't follow through. Why didn't you keep going? You were so good. What if they were really good and they just also didn't love it? That happens too. But so I think there maybe needs to be some grace applied to the parent and the student when it becomes apparent that the student just doesn't like it anymore. The parent, first of all, needs to realize that and understand it, but give grace to themselves and to the child that people quit things all the time, and it doesn't mean you're a bad person. It doesn't mean that you didn't at one point love it, and people change, life changes, and that's okay. And because there's just so many other awesome things out there to do. And if you are dancing 24/7 with 20 privates a week and you're at your studio, there's no time to explore those things. And like you said, Kevin, I really love what you said, that those kids that drop hopefully are dropping still with a appreciation of what they just did for 10 years, so that in 10 years they're going to buy the ticket when Alvin Ailey comes to town. You have to have those people who said, oh yeah, I used to dance, I really loved that. Maybe they'll go take an adult ballet class after the societal, the parent pressure's gone. Who knows?
Yeah.
With your point with stigma, I would say, I think that really starts with the leaders at the studio too. When the kid says that they don't want to dance anymore, as long as the studio is still really supportive of that, and especially the studio owner. So the next year when auditions happen, it's not oh, Susie, she couldn't make it, or she couldn't make the cut, I think sometimes we have to be making sure that we're responsible with our word choices, because those kids all still go to school together, so we don't want them to make Susie now feel different because, she decided that she wanted to invest in a different activity. So, I think that really has to do sometimes with the studio owners or the directors too, just having a positive mentality about it.
It's a trickle-down effect. As a studio owner, you set the tone for your program. And even with expectations for parents, sit down with those parents at the beginning of the year and tell them what you expect out of them, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, and go from there so that you're setting that bar. Let it all trickle down, because it's going to work in your favor in the long run.
That's great advice. Yeah, I was just sitting here thinking about how hard it has to be a parent in general. But then because I'm obviously not a parent, but I'm just thinking about a dancer who learned choreography in rehearsal and then came back the next week and didn't know the choreography. Whose fault is that? Is the teacher blaming the child? Is the teacher blaming the parent because the parent should have said, hey, make sure that you practice your choreography? But should the parent even have to say that in the off hours of training? Because it could come across as being a pressuring parent that is loving this more than the kid. And like, that's just like parenting in general, I feel like is, how to prepare your kid. And the parent doesn't want to be embarrassed that their kid doesn't know the dance when they come back, because that's a poor reflection of them. So it's like, I feel like it's a very fine line to figure out as a parent, how do I support my kid and make sure that they're going to class prepared and make sure they are retaining the corrections and make sure they are progressing without being, obsessive over it or pushing the kid too much, where it could be a fine line of tiptoeing around that sticky situation. Because, as a parent, I wouldn't want my kid to fall out of love. I just want to make sure they're going to class prepared. Just like you have to do your homework for school. Hey, did you do your homework tonight? Like, same type of thing. But if it's like, oh, well, sorry, we got to go run and go do this private lesson and we got to go do this and we got to go do that for other things in dance, then there's not enough time to come prepared for the next one. They didn't have time to think about their choreography because mom was cramming too many things into the kid's schedule for other dance related activities. So I can't imagine what it's like to be a parent. So shout out to all the parents out there. We love you. We do love you. Y'all are rock stars. It's just like finding that balance to make sure that you're not overbearing and too intense with your kid. I remember at my studio growing up. I mean, Mom, I love you, but I love you, but you're crazy sometimes. And
Hi, Robin.
and she's always listening. But like, she wasn't really like a crazy dance mom. She kind of let me do my thing. And I really respect that. And I think that's why I turned out the way that I did, where I wanted to pursue this and I was able to. But like, looking back on some of the other dance moms that existed at my studio, like they were a lot. There were some of them that were like, like drilling their kids' routines with them backstage at competition when they're not even a dance teacher. And the kid just is like so frustrated and doesn't want anything to do with it. And it's like stuff like that where I'm like, know your place, know your role, let the teachers do their job, trust your dancer that they're going to do it well. Don't like take the reins like that and think that you're making progress with your dancer. You're actually making it worse. And like some of those dancers that I look back that had moms that were a lot, never pursued it, didn't want to, don't love dance anymore. Maybe, maybe they have bad thought about it, like you said, like, it's a fine line. I think that as parents, it's hard to navigate, and especially with all of the pressure of winning and scholarships and photos and trophies and all those things, which existed when we were young, but not on the promotional level now that it exists now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, being a parent is like your entire life is fine lines.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is your child getting enough social interaction, but not too much social interaction that they're exposed to things that they shouldn't be exposed to? Are they participating in the right activities? Are they learning their letters? Like, I have a toddler right now who is, figuring out the ABCs and the 1, 2, 3s, and you get the progress report back and you go, oh my gosh, like he doesn't know this letter, and this letter. Is that my fault? Do I need to like pressure him to learn these things? And it messes with your mind in such a deep, crazy way. I mean, I highly recommend therapy for all the parents out there. Like,
yes,
you should always be in therapy.
For everyone, even if you're not a parent. You had a parent, so you should be in therapy.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. But it's all fine lines. It's so hard.
Well, and I think on that note, like remembering, and again, I'm not a parent, so this is just me coming from having been in 10 years of therapy. Hello, Stephanie. You just have to, I think, continually check in with your child and be willing to hear an answer you don't want to hear. If the question is, Sally, do you still love dance? It's okay if the answer is no. It always has to be okay if the answer is no. Because sometimes the answer is going to be no, and that shouldn't be this life-altering, ending disaster. You have to be able to go with the flow and find a plan B. And it doesn't even have to be a plan B necessarily. It's the better plan A that we didn't look at first because we just did dance first, But I think
also being connected to your child enough to know if the answer that they are giving you is true.
Right.
Like, my 4-year-old does kick and scream sometimes when he goes to dance class and does say sometimes, I don't want to dance right now. But I also know that he's 4 years old and doesn't always say yes to things he should say yes to or say no to things he should say no to. So I do sometimes have to like push him in the door and make him go. And it's you have to know your child that deeply that you can know when to push and know when to not.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. What a chat, y'all. I'm here for it. I've learned a lot. I've also reminisced a bit, and I still can't believe that there are dancers that take 20 privates a week.
Out of everything, that's what you'll remember.
Yes. Oh my
gosh. It's crazy to me.
Also, can I have some of that money? You know, maybe you could like take that 5 privates away and you could donate it to the Lesley, wants a new kitchen floor fund, because it's a lot of money.
It is. And like you said, Kimberly, like pay to play, that I think that it's a lot. That's a big topic of conversation in the dance world. And to be completely honest, it exists everywhere in the world. And I see it often as a professional dancer. I see like the dancers who are successful in a professional career are the ones who were able to pay to play their entire lives. And maybe they didn't have to pay for rent while they were pursuing auditioning because they had the funds and the support and the finances from whoever that could support them. And then that meant that they could apply that other money to training more, or that meant that they were more available for more auditions. So they had more opportunities than others. Like that exists very much in our dance world and in the life world, regular life. So it is really interesting to hear that perspective, because I think that a lot of it is coming down to going back to the 20 privates. You have to have money to be able to do 20 privates a week on top of your regular studio training, or however you're doing it. You have to have a lot of money to go to all these dance conventions. If you're one of the convention hoppers that goes every single weekend, it's not like we're budgeting this out. It's probably just like, sure, whatever, let's go to another dance convention. Sure, let's add another private to the equation. That's crazy to me. Like I get it. Some people are financially, they have more finances than other, and that's great. But we also have to make sure that you understand how much money you're investing into a hobby for your child, and your child needs to really understand how much your parents are investing. I say that all the time too, because there are kids at convention that I can tell don't want to be there. And I'm like, y'all need to make sure that you are giving your 110%, because your parents paid a lot of money for you to be in this room right now. You need to respect your family and your parents and the sacrifices that they're making for you to do what you quote unquote love. Because if you're not being respectful to that, the kids need to know it's about money. They don't need to know about the parents' finances, but they need to understand that what they're doing, there are sacrifices that are being made by the entire family and potentially your siblings, mom and dad, extra workload, like whatever it is. Because I can tell just based on, as a convention teacher, body language, I can tell that they don't want to be there. And like we've already talked about, it's hard for the teacher, but then it just breaks my heart for the parents, because I'm like, wow, you guys spent a lot of money for your kids and not want to be here right now. And that is the tough thing to think about. So yeah, we covered a lot today on this chat. And I'm so grateful to have both our fabulous IDA judges, Kevin and Kimberly, here joining us. Thank you for such an important discussion, a hot topic, and y'all really brought some great perspective to this.
Yes, thank you so much.
Of course. And how we always have our guests lead us out on making the impact is with one final thought on the topic. I know. Think about it for a minute if you need to. And it can be to whoever you want to talk to. You can give advice to other studio owners. You can give advice to the parents. You can speak to whoever you'd like when it comes to when a dance parent wants it more than the dancer.
Well, I'll just say that it just goes back to comparison is the thief of joy. So you just have to ask yourself, like, are you doing this for your kid, or are you doing this for yourself? And one good way to look at that is, are you constantly comparing what you're doing in your household to what someone else is doing in their household? If so, you may not always be doing it for the right reasons, because what works for you and what works for your family and for your kid is going to be different than what works for Susie and her kid. And if you're constantly worried about what Susie is doing, how are you going to really support your own child? So it's really just important to really make sure that like you can be curious so you can support others, but don't compare what someone else is doing to what you're doing or what your kid is doing.
I agree. My final note goes out to studio owners. I think it's really, really important that you understand that your studio culture comes from you, and you set the expectations, you set the bar, you allow things to happen within your studio. And yes, I understand, like, bottom line, bottom dollar is like the most important in running a business. Maybe that's why I don't run a studio anymore. But you have to be okay with setting those expectations and holding people to those expectations, and being willing to sit down with people and have those hard conversations and say, hey, this might not be the best option for you, or you're not aligning with our philosophy by holding your child to these crazy standards. Maybe you should go elsewhere. And it's a hard thing to do, but you got to do it in order to maintain your peace and your sanity, and to create the best learning environment for all of the kids and all of the families that are part of your studio family.
We hope you enjoyed this week's episode, all about when a parent wants it more than the dancer. Be sure to follow our special guest IDA judges on social media. You can find Kimberly at Kimba2484 and Kevin at KGrant623. Also, don't forget to follow Kevin's Grant Training Program, an exclusive program for dancers from different studios to come together for high-quality ballet training. Follow them on Instagram at Grant Training Program and learn more on their website at granttrainingprogram.com.
Don't forget to follow Making the Impact on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Podcasts, and pretty much everywhere you listen to podcasts. And if you want more exclusive episodes, support our podcast by joining our Platinum Premium membership for only $5 a month. Subscribers receive free Making the Impact stickers, shout-outs live on the air, ad-free listening, and exclusive access to our Q&A episodes for members only. Join now at impactdanceadjudicators.com/platinum premium, or click the link in our show notes.
Be sure to check out IDA-affiliated competition, GEMS Dance Competition. GEMS Dance Competition is a fresh dance event created by studios for studios, with the intent of changing the norm. Their competitions are designed to be a positive experience for you, your staff, your students, and your entire dance family. At GEMS, you're always guaranteed an encouraging, educational, professional, and fun environment at each location. With full panels of IDA judges at every event and locations throughout the Midwest, we highly recommend adding GEMS Dance Competition to your 2024 competition schedule. To learn more about GEMS and register for an upcoming event, head to their website at dancegems.com and come show your sparkle at GEMS Dance Competition.
We've got some awesome episodes coming up in the next few weeks, including 10 things your backstage manager wants you to know, homeschooling and dance, and perfecting the pirouette.
Stay tuned for more episodes launching next week and every Thursday throughout the dance season. Until then, keep dancing.